This is a sponsored post by Nikko Asset Management Asia Limited.
Why you're paying 1% more in management fees per year to an active fund manager is because you are giving him the mandate, the task, the responsibility that with that 1% I'm paying you more, you are going to give me more returns than what the index.
Yeah, you better beat the index.
You should beat the index.
Then I will beat you. Hey, no lah, just saying.
I have a lot of active fund managers who are friends.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we relax. Okay, welcome back to another episode of Chills with TFC. I'm your host, Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut. Today we have a friend on the show, right? Don't laugh, leh?
Just now you told me to laugh to test the sound. Right? So, wow.
Great. You're warming up, right? So maybe you want to introduce yourself so that our audience get to know.
I'm Eugene from Nikko Asset Management.
Wrong side, this one is Adidas.
Oh, yeah. My marketing team told me to wear this.
Yes, you should. You should. Great on the marketing team. Plus 5 points.
Plus 5 points.
Yes.
So I'm here on the show to represent NikkoAM in the best possible light so that if you think about NikkoAM, hopefully you think about ETFs.
Okay, that's all for the sponsor plug today,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Thank you.
But yeah, for our audience, I mean, they know you at NikkoAM. We're gonna put at the title #sponsored by NikkoAM. Everything they know it's a sponsored episode, right? But they want to know you as a person, right? So, how do you what do you do? How are you? Which phase of life are you at, and all that jazz?
Okay, so the biggest thing that happened to me this year, my second kid was born on Valentine's Day. A lot of people send me the message, not saying congratulations, like welcome, Rafael, right? They said, wow, you timed it very well, right? Government also, I think they increased the baby bonus or the grant on that day, but it's not planned, right? But what's been keeping me busy other than my job, then my job is a second child. So it's another stage of life where you've got double the commitments.
Yeah, that was for performance review, right?
A performance review, right? No.
Job keeps you busy, of course.
Baby bonus.
Baby bonus, the deal maker, yes.
So I think that's a key word here. The operative word is bonus. That means you may or may not get it. And it's not the reason why you have a baby. There are better reasons to have a baby, than thinking about money all the time. So as in I said, we are in a good position where we did not have to think about financial burdens. It did not overburden us, right? So if you ask me, can we have a third one? Has the conversation started? It's in the back of our minds, but we're still busy. Potentially, yeah.
You have a third one, conversation, and it's really?
You need to keep our population going, right? You need to replace yourself at least, right? So context is, we came from a big family. So the conversation did creep out, but more of a bit in jest, a bit in honesty. I think those are the best conversations, right? Like, hey, third one, why not? Then you're like this is 3 hours after giving birth, right? Third one, why not? Then we're like, let's KIV that. But it didn't shock us, really, no. Jalat, cannot. No money, no investments, no savings, emergency fund, zero,
So, I mean, I would expect you to do better, right? This is the basic expectation of an analyst, right? You should get your own personal finances sorted, right?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, fair. But okay, other than contributing to total fertility rate, right? Coming from a big family, right? I want to double down, right? Because these days, family gets smaller and smaller, and then it's the kid ends up being quite heavy on the kid, right? When it comes to parents, aged, and they need support and all that. And sometimes if we go through different generations, there was a generation that didn't make that kind of income, right? So now a lot of smaller families are struggling in that sense, the sandwich generation, right? But do you feel as coming from a bigger family is easier because more people share?
There is a component of that, definitely.
So is having more kids part of your retirement plan?
I hope not. I hope not. I hope that it doesn't come to that, right? At the end of the day, I take it that's my responsibility, that I'm not a burden to my kids and they're not my retirement plan. That means being as much as possible responsible to my own health, responsible for my own finances. So that once again, it's a conversation. It's like when having kids, is finances, health, money, going to be a big issue in my dotage. So as much as possible, we're trying as best as we can to ensure that day doesn't come. But do we acknowledge that day may come? Yes. I think that's an honest conversation we all have. But I think most of the support, right, when I think about it, it's really about time. Yeah, not so much about money. And I think that's more valuable actually.
So then with that in mind, right? So how would you then think a little bit about your retirement plan? Because to be clear, you're having a kid at like late 30s, right? Your second kid coming 40 lah,
40s,
right?
yeah.
So how are you then looking at your finances? Because I think there are a lot of people that are like, on the fence. And it's a concern, right? It's great to not feel like it's a concern, but I want to hear like your view, like why you feel more calm about it.
So this is gonna sound totally random. Like when I had my first kid, I was at my friend's wedding. I met this the wedding photographer lah. And he said, "Oh, you have your first kid lah. Just do that monthly thing lah. Every day, just buy X amount of dollars into a unit trust. And then when you graduate, you just open the account and like, wow, a lot of money. Sometimes it's just a hook. You don't really understand the complexities of it all. You don't really know how it works. But that just seemed to speak to something in me. As in, I think it's about being put in the right place at the right time, where someone just gives you one nugget, it's 2 or 5 cents worth of wisdom. And you kind of agree with it. And then suddenly I find myself here, and then it becomes my professional, as in 10 years down the road, now I'm the one in a professional capacity telling people, it's not that difficult, yeah? Right? Just every month or periodically, set aside, if you can just set aside something on an automated basis with any kind of instruments, generally safe, let's say for your kid's college fund, or you want to buy him his first HDB, or like a down payment for HDB, potentially. Right? At least after 20 years of you supporting him, unbeknownst to you, after 20 years, there is a pool of money that he can tap on and let him use as he sees fit. And in that way, money saved there becomes money that you can use for my retirement. And it means that I'm less of a burden to him. So that little piece of wisdom just stuck with me. I think I was fortunate that it came like 10 years early. And then if financial terms and all the jargon about compounding interest, how things can start small at first, but it grows,
it snowballs,
and etc. All that actually works. The maths, I checked the maths. The maths does work.
The math stands.
Yeah, yes. The math stands, and if you do that early enough, you do that consistently enough. That's the plan that I've been working on personally and on my family finances.
I think more and more people are pushing this idea, right? Like the math stands, it's there, but why are people still not doing it from your professional viewpoint? You know what I'm saying? Right? Like you go around everywhere, you tell people, do this, right? And then you're not alone. There are many people. It's like the bandwagon is there, But there's still many people that don't, right? So what is your professional view of this? Why is there such a phenomenon?
I think it just goes down to investments could seem scary, maybe for the risk averse. So I'm a very risk averse investor myself. So that means the pleasure I get from making big outsized market gains is less than the pain I feel when I make a loss. So I guess to some investors, like for myself, that fear of losing may be the one that's impeding them on starting investments early. There is also potentially that fear of like, what if I do something wrong? What if I lose my life savings? Or just fear of like, am I good enough to do it? Am I knowledgeable enough? Am I Warren Buffett?
You're not, and you will never be. Just saying, yeah.
Right?
And life is okay. You don't need to be a Warren Buffett, okay?
Yeah. Maybe let's talk about life, about my kids now trying to go swimming. What if I'm not prepared enough to start learning how to swim? But the thing is that, boy, you're not a fish. Right? You're a land animal, you're walking, right? You will never be ready to swim on day one, but at least dip your toe into water, feel how the water feels first, understand how water works. You can't breathe underwater, basic stuff like that, and then slowly you learn how to swim over time. But no one is asking you to go into the Pacific Ocean and swim.
So if we then contextualize it towards like investments and building a portfolio, what is the baby step then in your view?
Start small. Start in an amount that you are happy to lose. Once again, in the ETF context, in today's context in Singapore, this is my professional self speaking. It could be as low as...
Marcel. Today's sponsor episode, sell.
Yeah. It could be as low as $10, right? You can buy an STI ETF, just one unit. You can just buy one unit.
Just
for,
$10.
Maybe $3 plus some transaction costs, $10. That is... last I heard, about a fancy cup of coffee at Starbucks, right? And then let's say the worst that could happen, Singapore stock market collapse, that $3 goes down to zero. If that happens, then we are in a lot more trouble than just you losing your first investment. But what's the worst that could happen? You get cold feet, you suddenly decide, okay, maybe I should take a step back, reassess myself. You just sell it off in the same day because it's an ETF, it's traded on a stock exchange. You buy $3, pay some transaction fees to your broker. You're not happy, you're scared, you think maybe I did something wrong, sell it away, right? And at most, you lose your $10, which is just abstaining from one Starbucks mocha frappuccino with double whipped cream for one day.
I know.
That is not that scary, right? If you think about it, that is not that scary.
Fair.
Yeah.
So in that case, right, when we look at it that way, then in the landscape of solutions, right? Let's say we agree that we'll dip our toes, we'll try it out. But when you're starting out in your 30s, you have accumulated some wealth. A lot of people, they work damn hard. You suddenly one day you wake up and be like, wow, actually I got some money sitting in my bank account. What should I do about it? Right? So that's the time. Actually today I actually got a lot of money, but it's very foreign in terms of investing, right? So it's a step by step. But at that point, you will be targeted by all sorts of ads and all sorts of like, oh, you should buy this, you do that, you should use structured products, you should use all these other things. What do you have to say to that?
So I'm saying
professional view.
And also personal view. I'm saying learn as much as possible because learning is free. And now there's so much information out there. I think sometimes the question is that now there's so much information, what are you going to do with it? And which information source is trustworthy?
How do you decide then which information source is trustworthy?
See whether they are sponsored ads. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Today you sponsor, see.
We should cut it out. Okay, I think so. Trust your as usual. Go down. Your traditional sources that are let's say Channel News Asia. You start with these guys first, I guess. You look at what the professional fund managers are saying, and then you understand about different products. It could be about structured products, about derivatives, for example. But as in that should only form a part of a toolbox. Right? If you want to build a house, so let's say you're building a retirement nest egg, right? There are many, many products that can get you there. Some can potentially get you there faster, but there are more risks. So then more from the professional side, the products that we have at Nikko, ETFs, right? These one of the building blocks, one of the tools you can use, right? But we're not saying only look at ETFs and that's the be all and end all of your journey, right? You could also use it to complement how you get to your end goal of retiring in dignity. Retiring where you don't have to worry that your 2 kids cannot support you. Going back to, am I going to retire and count on my kids to support me in my dotage? But the argument is that there are some tools that provide certain benefits like diversification, like low cost, liquidity, the ability to buy and sell in the same day in case you get cold feet, you want to take a step back, they're all that. So these are all the considerations that you should take note of.
So what is your favorite ETF then? In your repertoire.
In my repertoire.
Yes.
I
love the word repertoire. Yes. Great word. Yes.
Yeah. My repertoire. la 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 la.
Yeah, but in the repertoire of all the ETFs.
The song that I like to play.
Yes, what's your favorite?
Sometimes they say you never forget your first. So my first was the STI ETF. So STI is just like a basket of all your favorite hits. Let's continue with the analogy, right? Your boy band songs are the songs I grew up with, like Backstreet Boys, right? So you've got DBS.
No, sorry, I may not say levels.
Oh, okay. Then was Celine Dion.
No, it's okay.
Okay. No judgment here. No judgment here.
DBS,
like DBS,
Singtel,
SGX, Singtel. These are household names that generally, like you walk on the streets of Singapore. DBS. Okay, it's still there. They're still, I've got a POSB account. DBS. It's like names you're familiar with, and I'm not putting all my money into one basket. Even though I think that they're still good business. I can see them in operation. Like, you've got Singtel, you've got SGX, SI, these. So you're diversifying your risk into one basket. That resonated with me. And it's my first investment because I thought, okay, I don't know enough to be confident that I'm really certain that this stock is going to make me money. I'm going to build my house based on this stock, right? But as a whole, I thought a basket of names that I'm familiar with, household names to me, as my first investment made a lot of sense. And back then, the initial investment amount, last time it was maybe about 100 units, 100 stocks. So it's about 3,000. But $3,000 back then, it was okay. It wasn't such a big amount that, if I lost it, it means I'll be begging on the streets, right? So I guess out of my entire repertoire of songs of investments, that has to be. So you look at the first one as the most important one, and that's the knock-on effect, right? This leads you to become invested. You have literally skin in the game, and become more open to learning about other products. And then it goes down to the more esoteric ones like structured products or single stocks or disruptive innovation stocks that is popular.
But the past decade, right? The American stock market has performed like way better than everyone else, right? The S&P 500 outperformed every other market, right? I stand corrected. I think it outperformed every other market, right? So sometimes when people think about it today, right, when they're deciding like, oh yeah, maybe I should invest in the US, right, and not here, what would you say to them?
I think the fact that you're telling me that you know about this stock market that is like 30,000 miles on the other side, literally on the other side of the globe, means that I'm actually happy that we're having that conversation. It means that Singapore investors are now more savvy. And just because there's information at our fingertips, it's not a bad thing, right? The fact that they know about the S&P 500, for example, means that I'm now almost quite certain you also know about my STI ETF. We like to use this saying, right? A rising tide lifts all boats. Just that in this instance, the Titanic, well, not Titanic sank, right? The S&P 500 boat, whatever it is, rose up in people's awareness, in people's understanding. And that's great because it means that actually my job is easier because you've heard about the S&P 500. You've heard what passive investing is like. You heard about an ETF, a product that can track the returns of the index, and you know that it can do well. But I hope you also know that it can. Right?
Because if you track back another 30 years.
Then the story may have changed.
The story have changed.
Oh, yeah, But if you've already had all that conversation already, then for me, it's just giving you another option that if you want to come closer back home, right? Maybe you want to start back home, then the conversation I have from a professional point of view to play my role as a NikkoAM, ETF business development person, it becomes a lot easier, right? Because they're like, oh, yeah, don't tell me about ETFs. I already know everything that's good about it. I know everything that's bad about it. And then the conversation has already progressed a lot more already. So I think in this sense, it really makes my job easier. Yeah.
Okay. That means you can retire earlier.
No, still
need to feed the family.
Still need to feed the family, and then still need to compound. The compounding journey.
Yes. I get it. Yeah.
The maths. I track the maths. Not so fast.
Okay. Yeah. Hey coconuts, I know you want to be a little bit smarter with your money, and that will mean to go for higher returns and lower costs, which at times does mean that you have to DIY, which can be a little bit jarring, especially when everybody is trying to tell you they are right. But if we bring it back down to basics, it's about accumulating consistently over a prolonged period of time, which is why I'm very excited to introduce you to Nikko Asset Management, which is a popular known name in the fund management space, and they have a whole suite of very popular ETF offerings. More importantly, they have created a guide to help you DIY your investments using regular saving plans and ETFs. Within the guide, they cover everything from DCA, dollar cost averaging, to diversification, even the right mindset to help you go through this whole process to increase your success rates, all the way to where do you get started with this regular saving plan. So all these done by the team at Nikko Asset Management. What you need to do is head over to the link in the description below to find the guide. Like you put it, right? Actually, ETFs are like talk of the town, right? Everybody, I won't say everyone, but it's so common these days, right? It's like one of the few things people think about is it's just there, right? But what is one thing that people still don't know about ETFs? And they know how to execute, they know what is inside, they know the cost structure, they know those things, right? But even at that point, what is something that you think they should be aware, or like maybe it didn't cross their mind?
Okay. So if they already know all that, then I guess in recent times, I think what we do have to get people to take note of is the risks involved. Like not all ETFs are built equal because of the underlying that the ETF, the index that the ETF is supposed to track the underlying could look very different from ETF to ETF. For example, ETFs that may track, let's say, the Chinese tech market. So you've got Alibaba, you've got Tencent, for example. The risk involved in that space would be very, very different from, let's say, the risk involved in the STI ETF, which tracks a broad basket. It means it's not just tech stocks, but you've got banks, telcos, airline companies, etc., right? So the risk is a bit more diversified if you're looking at a broad-based ETF. Whereas if it's, let's say, just a tech ETF, then you're taking more of a narrow view on that. And I think that may have caught some investors by surprise because they think that, oh, I'm looking at an ETF, by right, it's diversified. But if it's diversified within a small slice, and the chances that within a small slice, as a basket, that small slice, everything kind of goes down, then you may start to question, why is that? I thought I was diversified. But you are saying, no, actually, this is where I think you take a microscope and you do have to take a closer look. And that risk, I think, has become more apparent over the last couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
So we do tell people to once in a while, do look under the hood.
Fair.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's a much longer discussion on like what is the composite, how does those things work, you know? NikkoAM can have a series lah, huh?
Can.
Yeah, sponsor series lah. Send the invoice, okay? Yes.
Maybe the next time I come here,
Yes, must be the whole chest one. And you know, like the I cannot tahan you say, but okay, but you know, like you're not the only provider in town.
Yeah.
And you know, you have competitors, and your competitors sometimes look like they are providing the same thing. You know, it's like, you know, like ETF to ETFs, like all tracking STI, all tracking S&P. Why should I choose you, like, in that sense? And like, is there any difference? Although you know, like marketing is all the same, right? The same few words. Because you're a regulator, you cannot use any rando words, right? So you know, you kind of, everybody's kind of standardized around a few words.
Yeah.
You know, but how are you then different? If let's say we're all, you know, tracking the same space.
Okay. So I think that I do need to correct you there.
Yes.
We don't all track, as in, I think it's sort of like if I wanted to launch a product and there's already a 600-pound gorilla in the room that I already know that from day one I need to beat. And the fact of the matter is that ETF is a game of scale. Whoever is bigger usually wins, right? Unless you can be a lot cheaper. But this is a bit more complex. But to be cheaper, you have to be bigger.
Bigger, yes.
So in my past life, I came from the product side. So we don't usually, like we very, very seldom, it will take a lot for us to justify launching an ETF that's exactly the same as someone else out there in the market because no one wants to fight the 600-pound gorilla. So I think the ETF market in Singapore is small enough at the moment where there always are differences between the ETFs that are listed on the Singapore Stock Exchange. I think there are about 35 to 40. Last I checked, they all have differentiated enough, right? That no one really can say that, oh, mine is actually the same. And then because that would just mean that we're going down into a price war. Then it becomes to who knows who first, who likes this color versus the other guy's color. You know, then it goes down to we're competing on things that we do not want to compete.
Yeah, fair.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a different conversation. But like ETFs, it's how you, once again, which slice of the market that you want to be able to give investors a choice to express their investment outlook for.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair. And to be fair, you guys are also a 600-pound gorilla in some spaces. Right? Let's be clear on that, right? So yeah, don't come. So
to my competitors, we are the 600-pound gorilla.
Yeah. Don't anyhow come, right? But you know what I mean, right? Like everybody has like a tech fund. You know, everybody has a China fund, or everybody, and these words, right? It's like so loose, you know, like everybody has a biomedical fund, everybody has like a, you know, sustainable. Oh my god, that's the cheesiest one, sustainable fund and all that, right? So like, how do I? Let's say today I take a point of view, right? China is going to be big. Let's say we take a point of view, and then I go out shopping for like Chinese funds or like investing in like ETF with like China exposure, you know, like exposure, right? How do I evaluate it, and why, you know, like how do I evaluate like China fund? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it goes back to basics. It goes back to China fund. It's the same way you would, I guess, evaluate the STI, Singapore exposure, right? So look at the top 30 biggest companies on the Singapore Exchange, and then you compare them. So DBS is there, as in what you expect to see in an ETF that says that I'm tracking Singapore market. And then as you look at the constituents, and this is doing homework, right? So
of course, must do homework.
yeah, if I sell you a basket of rotten fish, just because it's a basket, just many rotten fish, at the end of the day, it's still rotten fish.
Yes,
right?
It's not a hamper.
It's not. Hamper, sometimes you open up, then it's all the paper.
I know, it's only
behind.
the first few things very nice only. Yes, but anyway, yes.
So look through it. So I guess if you're, let's say, looking at STI, right? The reason why I looked at STI and I thought, okay, it's because what I expected to be there, the biggest companies, my household names, were in the ETF. But then if you look at, China fund, and then like China exposure, whatever, and then you see the names inside and they don't jive with what you know as the biggest Chinese companies, then you know something's off. Then you know that something is off, right? You don't see maybe Industrial Commercial Bank, ICBC, right? You don't see Bank of China. You don't see Tencent. You don't see Alibaba. If you don't see these in a fund that is by name supposed to give you, access and exposure to the biggest, strongest companies in China, then you know that there's something off. Yeah. Then let's say ESG. Well, ESG is
completely different ball game.
But let's say biochemicals, right? When it comes to, once again, looking at more narrow slices of a certain market or a certain sector or a certain thematic, then you just have to put a bit more effort to ensuring that, okay, if I'm looking at, let's say, a China electric vehicle fund. So this is because it's one of our ETFs.
Yeah, slot.
Right?
Slot.
Yes. Drive through. Okay. And then let's say it's a Chinese electric vehicle fund, right? I'm telling you, I'm giving you access to all this. But then if my fund doesn't give you access to NIO, for example, BYD, right? Cars that you see on the road, Chinese electric vehicle cars, and then like, how come I don't see it as a constituent? Then you would be questioning me like, are you sure this fund is, you're selling what is on the label? Yeah. So I think that's how anyone should at least go about looking at an ETF, ensuring that what you're buying, like the fish in the basket, is what is advertised.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
And there's also this one other common question out there, right? Where, because I think what you described is it's more like a passive, index type of investing, right?
Yep.
Where essentially we build a composite, right? Based on the idea, there's an index and we build it from there, right? So that's what people more commonly will associate with ETFs.
Yeah.
Right. But there's also the other side, which is the actively managed type of funds, right? Do you have a view on that? Like for someone that is looking at it? I know we evolved quite far already, right? From like STI, now we are going to the like more chimology, right? The chim side, right? So like between actively managed and like, passive index type of idea. Do you have any thoughts? Like what should we think about?
Active and passive, to me, I think it's really just about the cost that you are the management fees of owning that
which
you're paying.
Which is quite different, right?
Which is quite different. Yeah. Right?
Can you give us an example?
An example, or just aggregation in general, actively.
I love how you use aggregation. Tell us which generation you come from. But
really?
Yes.
So it's a really young generation, right?
About aggregation from a certain era. But please continue.
I say that, then you do a translation.
Yes.
For the younger generation.
For the younger generation, it's estimate lah, right? Yes.
Aggregation, actively managed is about 1.5%. ETFs are generally cheaper, so anything from 0.2 to 0.7. Right, that's about the range. The reason why there's about 1% difference is because for a passive fund, what we're essentially telling you is that whatever the index buys, so the top 30, every 3 months or every 6 months, the index provider will just tell us, these are the 30 stocks, these are how much of each stock is inside this basket. You just have to follow. Not much brain power there. It's transparent. So ETFs are transparent. What you see is what you get. You're not supposed to deviate too far from the index. Whereas why you're paying 1% more in management fees per year to an active fund manager is because you are giving him the mandate, the task, the responsibility that with that 1% I'm paying you more, you are going to give me more returns than what the index.
Yeah, you better beat the index.
You should beat the index.
I will beat you. Hey, no lah, just saying.
I have a lot of active fund managers who are friends.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we relax.
Yes. I'll tell them if you see Reggie on the street.
You better be careful watching you.
But that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the skills, in that they have accumulated over their many years of experience to try to beat the index. But if I told you that I'm not trying to beat the index, I'm just gonna copy paste what the index provider is telling me to do, they will beat me up if they say I can charge 1.5%, right? Then no, you're just copying the index, right? You're just tracking the index as closely as possible. That's your job. So what we're just getting you, the management fee is really just to cover the operations of tracking it as closely as possible. So I think that's the biggest difference. But can they coexist? Definitely you can. Yeah, because there are some fund managers who have repeatedly shown over the many years that they can outperform the index. And then if they have that track record and you think that their outperformance is justified with that extra that you're paying, then it shows that number one, you did your due diligence, which is always what we want to hear.
Yes.
Right? That means you know more about this fund manager than you know about buying your washing machine.
You
right?
should.
You should.
Yes.
Everything
long-term impact is much bigger than washing machine. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right? So if you know that about the fund manager, about that active fund that you're doing, and you're confident that he can give you the outperformance, go for it. But if you want to, for example, get exposure to a certain market, it could be China, Singapore, US, at a cheap cost, right? And you just want to ride along with the performance, then an ETF is a good way to start, and it's a cheap way to start.
Yeah, fair. So don't listen to some of the fund manager when they say, "Oh, it's not about the cost." Like you gotta factor in the cost, right? It's important, right? Like I pay you a bit more, then I expect you to perform even more, right? Like on some level, we're taking a position, right? That means we are taking a little bit more risk than everyone else, right? But that's a different discussion. That's a different discussion altogether. So bringing back. I'll give you one last question. Bring it all back. Today, you are in your late 30s, 40s, right? You have a kid, like young kid. Everybody wants to like do their best for their kids, right? They want to like, give the kid the advantage, like be out there. So if today you were to build a fund for your kid to give them the advantage in life, 20 years down, what would you do?
Knowing all that I know that I don't know enough about trying to beat the market. And this is not just me in my professional capacity talking about investments. This is just me understanding that, number one, I do not have the time to be a good stock picker. I won't be the next Warren Buffett. So what
it's
I would
okay.
do,
It's okay.
Yeah, and it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly...
As long as you're clear.
I'm clear, yeah.
Yes.
Right? I can't do that. So that's the first premise, right? I do not have enough time, knowledge, patience, resources, whatever, to even think of myself as a good stock picker. So personally, that's what I'm doing. Once again, that photographer, an RSP, so it's a regular savings plan into an ETF. It's once again the STI, my first repertoire, right? And just steadily and consistently invest through a dollar cost averaging strategy into an ETF that hopefully will generate that kind of compounding over many years, right, until he's 20 and ready to go on its own. So that's where I will start. And the second premise is that I think everyone has a little bit of a gambler spirit in them, right?
Yes.
So have you ever sold or bought a stock? Let's say you bought a stock and then the price went down. And you felt, actually, if I had just stayed off for a little bit, I think I could have bought it at a lower price. You bought a stock, then you sold a stock, then
it
price
went up.
Then you're like, I really could have made a lot more money about it.
I think especially when we're all just starting.
Oh, I think
it's always like that.
It's always like that. I think everyone seems to have like a little bit of a beginner's luck just to get you hooked and like, hey, I think I can do this. I think maybe I might be the one.
Yeah.
I might. Yes. I might be the one. Yeah, it's not that difficult. What are these guys talking about not being able to beat the index all the time?
I don't know why I'm vibing with that, but it's true. A lot of people say that.
Right. Right. And that's what I get as well. And I can see in people because I felt it very, very deeply. I was like, one of my early personal ones, very early investments was in Alibaba. Right? At one time, whatever stock you bought, I think typically during the COVID period, there was a good equity run. Then you thought, I can do this. Then after that, maybe not.
Yeah.
Right? But at the beginning, there's that little gambler spirit. I've come to the realization that it's really, as in now, an internalization that it's really not that easy to beat the market. And so hats off to the active managers who consistently do that. And so as a personal investor, so the second premise is I can't time the market. I'm terrible at timing the market. right? So what do? I just consistently put in a certain amount of money. And then if the price of the ETF goes down, I just buy more units of the ETF. Right? It's simple dollar cost averaging. And the price goes up, I'm happy because everything that I bought at a cheaper price,
Comes back up.
it goes back up. But when it's that time when I have to invest, right, I just buy less. But if the market is going up, then it's great, right? Because whatever I've invested over the many years also continues to go up with me. So those are the two premises that I realized that I need to realize, and I've realized is number one, I'm not a good stock picker. Number two, I'm terrible at timing the market. So if I'm doing it for my kid, right, those are the two. Based on those two premises, that's my investment strategy for them.
Do you have a target amount for your kid? Like the goal, I'm going to accumulate this for my child.
Not a hard target. And that really depends on where you are in your finances, your career. So when I started it with my first kid, I started it once again very cautiously with the minimum amount with any of the RSP providers, which is $100 every month into the STI for him. But now with my second kid, my finances have obviously become a bit larger, right? A bit more disposable. Which is great. Right? But then also responsibility, right? So it's like if you apportion the same percentage of your disposable income or of your income into savings, then at this point of time, I can afford to put a bit more for both my sons each month into an ETF, right? So as in, I'm not too hard up that it must be X amount.
It's also a bonus mindset.
Yeah. If I've got more,
I'm going to accumulate. Eventually, daddy's going to give you a bonus.
Yeah.
And great on you, right?
Great on you.
If don't have, then fight harder. Right?
Yeah. I think it's just a good place to start because I know that if I do that, then about 50-60%, I should be able to get about 50-60% of some hazy target I have in mind, right? Assuming inflation doesn't kill it all, right? But generally, I think that's my strategy. Just start somewhere, start simple, start small, start where you're comfortable with. But I think the most important thing was, I started investing for my kids.
Nice. That was a great ending. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I got 3 questions that I ask everybody that come on the show. It's a rapid fire. Okay. So the first question is, what has been your best and worst investment you've ever made?
Okay, I think I touched on this. Once again, my repertoire.
Oh, we move away from financial. It could be something else.
Oh, okay. Best investment. No, still.
Sponsored, say. Cannot run away, right?
No, because you use this kind of jargon, then my mind just goes.
I get it. It's a career thing.
It's a career thing. I think it's right. Because it crystallizes what is important in planning for the future. And I think finances, at the end of the day, as much as we don't like to say it, it helps you remain happy. Because as long as you've got that covered, generally, then you are generally a happier person. So knowing that I've got that covered, yeah.
So worst investment, Alibaba lah. Right? Okay,
we
don't go there.
You had to drive it in, right?
Yeah, you're not alone. I think quite bad. Okay, next question. What is one thing under $100 that has been a game changer for you?
Well, I think it has to be not sponsored, but I think it's the fact that SGX lowered their minimum lot size for ETFs.
Oh yeah.
So once again, for the price of a Starbucks, right, you can at least get your toes wet into investing into at least one ETF.
But I would believe you must be cautious about the cost of transaction, right? Because you don't want it to be too much relative to the amount that you put in.
Nobody will do it. Actually, technically, nobody will do it. Because
And we must reiterate, at least that's the house view, right? You must be clear. Transaction fees do eat, you must count that lah, right? But it's a great place to start in terms of getting your toes wet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, just the toes.
Last question. One place you learn that you think is underrated. It can be a particular book, a website, your favorite podcast, or YouTube and all that.
My favorite podcast.
Don't need. Say we're already number 1. Don't need. But thank you.
No, yes. I think it's,
and you don't even need to be finance. It could be something else.
I think where I continue to get inspiration, where I get excited about learning, right, comes from friends. So COVID years, we didn't see friends. Then I didn't get any new interest. I didn't come up with new ideas. Didn't think about what I should be doing next. It's only after all the lockdowns have lifted that you start socializing again. That when you speak to people, and usually if they're your friends, it's people of similar interests or people you can vibe with. And when you hear what they're excited about, you may also get excited about, and you start learning more, right? And it's a natural learning process where you are invested in learning yourself. Otherwise, it just feels like a New Year resolution. I want to read 25 books, and then by March, April, and then I've not read a single one. But then if it's like your friends telling you about how to renovate a house, all right, interior design, what are the latest trends, then you find yourself picking up books. Well, no one really has physical books, but reading up about lots of different interests on your spare time, and you are happy doing so. I think that's also keeps helps people keep depression away.
It does. It's a lot about social relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you so much.
This podcast is purely for informational purposes only, with no consideration given to the specific investment objective, financial situation, and particular needs of any specific person. It should not be relied upon as financial advice. Any securities mentioned herein are for illustration purposes only and does not guarantee their continued inclusion in the portfolio. It should not be construed as a recommendation for investment. You should seek advice from a financial advisor before making any investment. In the event that you choose not to do so, you should consider whether the investment selected is suitable for you. Investments in funds are not deposits in, obligations of, or guaranteed or insured by Nikko Asset Management Asia Limited, NikkoAM Asia. Past performance or any prediction, projection, or forecast is not indicative of future performance. The information contained herein may not be copied, reproduced, or redistributed without the express consent of NikkoAM Asia. While reasonable care has been taken to ensure the accuracy of the information as at the date of publication, NikkoAM Asia does not give any warranty or representation, either express or implied, and expressly disclaims liability for any errors or omissions. Information may be subject to change without notice. NikkoAM Asia accepts no liability for any loss, indirect or consequential damages, arising from any use of or reliance on this podcast.